They thought leaving was a choice. In this town, it never was. Once you arrived, you belonged to it. Nobody warned them about the silence. Not the quiet kind you hear at night, but the kind that settles into a place and refuses to move. The town looked ordinary at first glance. Dusty streets, crooked wooden buildings, a general store that smelled like old grain and sweat. But there was something else, something heavier in the air. People didn't wave. They didn't stare either. They just watched long enough to make you uncomfortable, then looked away like they'd already learned something about you. The woman noticed it first. Every town had eyes, sure, but these eyes felt like they were counting, measuring, deciding. The man told himself it was nothing. Frontier towns were always strange. You passed through, stocked up, moved on. That was the rule. Or so he thought. They stayed the night because the horses needed rest. By morning, the road looked different. Not blocked, not destroyed, just wrong. The tracks they'd followed in were barely visible, like the earth itself had smoothed them over. At breakfast, the woman asked the innkeeper how far it was to the next town. The man paused before answering. "Depends," he said, voice flat. "On what?" she asked. He didn't reply. He just wiped the counter again, slow and deliberate, like the question had already crossed a line. As the day went on, they noticed something else. No one was packing to leave. Wagons sat broken but never repaired. Horses were fed but never saddled. A man stood near the edge of town staring down the road for hours, like he was waiting for permission that never came. When the woman asked him what he was waiting for, he flinched. "I used to ask that too," he muttered, then walked away. That was the moment the feeling shifted from curiosity to unease. By sunset, the town felt smaller. The streets seemed shorter, the buildings closer together. The horizon, once wide and open, now looked boxed in by hills that hadn't been there that morning. The man tried to laugh it off, but even his voice sounded unsure. He checked the wagon again. One wheel had cracked clean through. He swore it had been fine yesterday. No one offered help. No one asked questions. They just watched from doorways like they already knew how this would end. That night, the woman couldn't sleep. Somewhere outside, a bell rang once. Not a warning, not a signal, just a reminder. She realized then what no one would say out loud. This wasn't a town people passed through. It was a place that decided who stayed. And once it chose you, leaving wasn't a matter of distance. It was permission. And this town never gave it. By the second day, they stopped asking questions. Not because they had answers, but because every question seemed to make things worse. The woman noticed it when she asked for extra water. The room went quiet. A few heads turned. The shopkeeper handed her the water without a word, but his hands were shaking. Outside, the man whispered, "Don't ask again." She wanted to argue, but something in his eyes stopped her. He'd seen it too. The invisible rules. The ones everyone followed without admitting they existed. Frontier towns were built on rules, but these weren't written anywhere. You didn't talk about leaving. You didn't fix wagons too quickly. You didn't ask how long someone had been there. The people who broke those rules didn't vanish overnight. They faded. First their voices lowered. Then they stopped meeting your eyes. Eventually, it was like they'd always belonged there, like the town had rewritten their past. They met a woman who'd arrived years earlier with her brother. She spoke carefully, choosing each word like it might be used against her. "The town gives you what you need," she said. "Food, shelter, work." The woman asked what it took in return. The answer came too fast. Time. Not money. Not labor. Time. And once the town took enough of it, You forgot what you were supposed to do with the rest. That night, the man tried again to fix the wagon. The crack in the wheel had spread, splintering deeper into the wood. He hadn't heard footsteps, but suddenly someone was standing behind him. "That won't hold," the stranger said calmly. "It never does." The man asked why no one ever replaced it. The stranger looked at him for a long moment, then said, "Because it's not meant to." Fear didn't arrive all at once. It crept in through small realizations. The maps didn't match the land anymore. The road markers were wrong. Even the stars seemed off, like the sky itself had shifted. The woman began to understand the truth no one admitted. The town wasn't trapping people with force. It was trapping them with time. Days blurred together. Urgency faded. The need to leave slowly lost its shape. By the third night, the bell rang again. One single chime. The woman asked what it meant. An older man finally answered, "It means the town noticed you." That should have meant nothing. Instead, it felt like a sentence. She lay awake, listening to the wind move through the empty streets, realizing that in this place, survival didn't depend on strength or courage. It depended on obedience. And the town was patient. It always waited until you stopped fighting. People didn't give up all at once. That was the town's greatest trick. It didn't crush hope. It wore it down. The man woke up one morning and realized he hadn't thought about leaving in days. The thought startled him more than the silence ever had. He went outside, breathing in the dust, staring at the road like it might accuse him of something. The woman noticed the change, too. His movements were slower, his voice steadier, like someone who had accepted terms without remembering the negotiation. Work appeared easily, too easily. The town always needed hands. Once you started, it became harder to stop, not because anyone forced you, but because stopping felt pointless. The woman took work at the general store. Every night she told herself it was temporary. Every morning, that promise felt thinner. She watched newcomers arrive with the same alert eyes she once had. She recognized the questions forming on their lips before they swallowed them. One afternoon, she finally asked the question that had been burning since day one. "Has anyone ever left?" The answer came from a man stacking crates. "Yes," he said. She felt a rush of relief. Then he added, "But they didn't stay gone." He didn't explain further. He didn't need to. The idea settled in her chest like cold weight. Leaving wasn't escape. It was delay. The bell rang again that evening, louder this time. The woman noticed something new. The sound didn't echo. It stopped clean, like it had never existed. She realized the town didn't need walls. It didn't need guards. It only needed time and fear working together. People stayed because leaving meant facing the unknown without the town's protection. And once you depended on it, freedom felt reckless. The man stood at the edge of town at sunset, watching the light fade. He tried to remember why he'd wanted to leave in the first place. The reasons felt distant, abstract. He understood then why people stopped trying. Not because they were weak, but because the town made staying feel reasonable, logical, safe. And the most dangerous traps were the ones that made sense. That night, the woman admitted the truth she'd been avoiding. "It's changing us," she whispered. The man didn't deny it. He couldn't. The town wasn't violent. It wasn't cruel. It was patient. And patience, she realized, could erase a person faster than force ever could. Years later, the town still stood. Travelers still arrived. And most of them stayed longer than planned. The woman now knew the pattern by heart. Arrival, unease, questions, silence, acceptance. She hated how familiar it felt, hated how easy it was to recognize herself in every new face. The town hadn't changed. It didn't need to. People did that part for it. One evening, a young couple asked her for directions out. She gave them the road, the landmarks, the timing. All the right answers. She watched them leave at dawn. By nightfall, they were back. The man wouldn't meet her eyes. The woman looked exhausted, like she'd aged years in a single day. The town had noticed them, too. The truth was simple, and that's what made it terrifying. The frontier didn't trap people with chains. It trapped them with dependence, with safety that came at the cost of choice, with a quiet agreement that survival mattered more than freedom. The town still exists because it reflects something deeply human: the willingness to trade tomorrow for today. On quiet nights, when the bell rang and the dust settled, the woman understood the final rule. The town didn't stop you from leaving. It just waited until you forgot why you wanted to. And once that happened, you were already home.